I don't live my life with regrets, and I don't dwell on anything. I feel like it happened. It must have happened for a reason.
Bruno Mars has always been the king of cool. But get this, his life has been a series of survival stories that most people would never believe. At 39, he is finally addressing the rumors about his gambling and the real reason why he disappeared from the spotlight. For starters, he grew up in a world of screaming peacocks and no electricity. And that is putting it lightly. The industry wanted a Latin heartthrob, but he was hiding a much darker ambition. But here is the catch. The truth is finally out. The haunted past of a child star. Most people think about the fame, but they do not see the work that goes into being a superstar before you even finish first grade. Bruno Mars was just 4 years old when most kids were still learning to read or playing with blocks in the dirt. While others played with toys, he was already performing 2 shows a night, 5 days a week. His family had a musical act in Waikiki, and he became their biggest star because he could mimic legends like no one else. They called him Little Elvis because he wore a tiny glitter jumpsuit and copied Elvis Presley moves like he was born to do it. He was so good that in 1990, at just 5 years old, he stole the spotlight at the Aloha Bowl halftime show in front of 40,000 people. Imagine being that small and having 40,000 sets of eyes watching every hip wiggle and hair flip. At 6, he appeared on the Arsenio Hall show, where he charmed the nation with his confidence. Then he had a small role in the movie Honeymoon in Vegas in 1992 and made $600 for 1 day of work. He joked later that it was his first Vegas residency, but there was a hidden cost to all that early fame. Before he even turned 10, he had performed nearly 1,000 shows. That kind of start builds something deep inside that never quite goes away. Maybe that is why, years later, when he was rehearsing for the Super Bowl halftime show, he said it felt like recess, because he had already faced bigger crowds as a toddler. But life did not stay that shiny for long, and the stage lights eventually started to flicker out. But the music stopped playing when the family unit fell apart, and the money dried up. Suddenly, there was no stage, no lights, and no money to keep a roof over their heads. Bruno, his dad, and his brother slept wherever they could find a flat surface and a bit of safety. Sometimes they piled into a yellow '93 Cadillac, and other times they slept on rooftops in Waikiki looking up at the stars they used to sing under. There was even a time they stayed in an abandoned bird zoo where peacocks screamed all night long. It sounds like a movie, but the smell and the noise were very real. They did not have a real bathroom, so they would sneak into hotel pools just to take a shower and try to look like normal guests. Dinner was often just Spam musubi from 7-Eleven, a cheap snack that became a reminder of their struggle. For 5 months, they had no electricity at all. He practiced guitar by moonlight because they could not afford to plug in an amp. At school, kids teased him for wearing thrift store clothes. But Bruno kept pushing because he knew he had something special. He earned $75 a night impersonating Michael Jackson so he could pay for demo tapes and bus fare. That struggle made him tough, but it also made him desperate to escape the island and find a bigger world. In 2003, music labels finally heard his demo and said he should be the next Ricky Martin. They wanted him to sing in Spanish, even though he did not write in Spanish, but he did not want that. He did not want to be a label idea of a Latin artist. So, he picked a name that came from his childhood, which was Bruno. It was after a big wrestler named Bruno Sammartino, because he was a chunky kid. And he added Mars, because a girl once told him he was so confident he must be from another planet. When he moved to Los Angeles in June 2003, he was 18 and ready to conquer the world. He stepped off the plane with only $600, 3 demo CDs, and the name Bruno Mars written on his luggage tag. The big city was not ready for him, and he soon found out that talent was not enough to pay the rent. The fake DJ who conned the industry. In his first year in Los Angeles, he went through 4 places to live, including a $40 a night motel on Sunset and a cramped Koreatown studio shared with 6 other guys. To survive, he lied his way into a DJ job on Van Nuys Boulevard, even though he had never touched DJ equipment in his entire life. He got fired after 2 nights because he did not know what he was doing, but the $75 he made helped him keep his phone from getting shut off. That summer, there were weeks when he ate nothing but 99-cent tacos from Jack in the Box. In February 2004, Motown offered him a deal that was only 3 pages long. Bruno joked that he had seen breakfast menus thicker than that. The label did not know what to do with him, because they still wanted a Latin pop singer. 9 months later, they dropped him without releasing a single song, which was a huge blow to his ego. He had already told his family back home that he got signed, so he felt like a failure. But that failure turned out to be lucky, because another artist dropped by Motown at the same time was Philip Lawrence. The two became friends and promised each other they would make music that record labels could not ignore. By 2006, Bruno and Philip were broke, but driven to succeed. They wrote music in the back of a beat-up '99 Toyota Corolla parked outside a small studio in Hollywood. Ari Levine ran the studio and let them use the gear if they bought him burritos from 7-Eleven as payment. Whenever a chord or beat felt good, they would shout that it was a smash, and that became their name, the Smezingtons. They worked 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, analyzing hit songs and learning how to write their own. They studied more than 1,000 songs before even releasing one of their own. Then his sister Hay stepped in and slipped one of his demo CDs to a guy named Mike Lynn, who worked for Dr. Dre. At first, he almost tossed the CD because the voice sounded weird. But at 43 seconds in, Bruno hit a high note that made Mike stop and rewind. He flew Bruno out for a meeting, and while they did not offer a deal, the fact that someone important noticed gave him a huge boost. To survive, they sold a song called Lost to Menudo for $20,000, which was just enough to avoid getting kicked out. But their big break came when they wrote the chorus for Flo Rida and the song Right Round. The song hit #1 and sold 636,000 downloads in its first week. By the time Bruno released Just the Way You Are in 2010, songs he helped create had already sold more than 15 million downloads for other people. He was finally a star in his own right, but the industry was about to see just how far he could go. Bruno Mars did not explode onto the scene overnight, but once he did, there was no stopping him. His solo journey began with a small EP called It Is Better If You Do Not Understand. It dropped on May 11th, 2010, with barely any attention. It was just 13 minutes long, and by the end of 2011, it had sold just 27,000 copies. It looked small and forgettable, but hidden in that short project were songs that would become the backbone of something much bigger. Just 5 months later, he released Doo-Wops and Hooligans in October 2010. That one hit like a bomb and changed the pop landscape. Made on a budget of $70,000 with no borrowed samples, the album went 7 times platinum in the United States and crossed 15 million global sales by 2020. In the United Kingdom, it stayed on the charts for 400 weeks straight, which is nearly 8 years. His debut single, Just the Way You Are, hit #1 only 8 weeks after entering the charts and stayed there for 48 weeks. In the United States alone, it sold 6.7 million downloads. Then came Grenade, which pulled in 559,000 downloads during its peak week. It topped charts in 15 countries, and hit #1 on Billboard 3 different times. By March 2011, Bruno had 2 songs that were each certified over 5 million in sales. The only other artist to do that before him was Lady Gaga. The Grammys gave him 7 nominations in his rookie run, and he walked away with Best Male Pop Vocal. He was only 25 and the youngest man to win that award since Stevie Wonder in 1974. Soon after, Billboard named him their top artist, and he was the best-selling global artist of 2011. But he was not done yet. In October 2012, Locked Out of Heaven came out and climbed to #1, where it stayed for 6 straight weeks. That made Bruno the first solo male artist since 1964 to score 4 #1s in his first 2 years. Even Michael Jackson did not do that. The track eventually went 10 times platinum, and Spotify streams climbed past 1.8 billion. Critics were stunned by how he shifted the entire sound of pop radio. When he handed in 24K Magic in 2016, the label was not impressed because it only had 9 tracks. But Bruno was firm because he wanted it to feel like a 90s party mixtape. When the Grammys rolled around in January 2018, he swept the awards and won 6 in one night. The tour that followed was just as wild, earning $367.7 million across 6 continents. Every song was crafted with insane attention to detail. Then he surprised the world with Silk Sonic and Leave the Door Open, which was streamed over 2.3 billion times. But the wildest moment came on August 16th, 2024, when Lady Gaga dropped Die with a Smile. In just one day, it broke streaming records with 27.4 million plays. The song ruled the charts for 18 straight weeks. During its biggest week, it earned nearly $1 million a day in publishing, which means every second was worth over $11. At the 2025 Grammys, he hit a note that lasted more than 11 seconds, and people called him a human saxophone. Then he teamed up with Rose from Blackpink for a song that hit 100 million views in just 19 hours. They performed it at Sophie Stadium and the sound was louder than a jet engine. People wondered what the song title meant, and he finally explained it stood for After Party Tango. By August 2025, the song had been streamed more than 3 billion times. But while the music was winning, his personal life and his bank account were facing a different kind of music. The final confession of Bruno Mars. Behind the flashing lights and the record-breaking hits, there was a story of a long-term love and a massive debt that would not go away. In spring 2011, Bruno met Jessica Cabin at a hotel restaurant in New York. They locked eyes for 40 minutes before he finally walked over to talk to her. They talked until 2 in the morning, and in less than a year, she moved across the country to be with him. At first, she slept on an air mattress while he toured the world, but they built a life together in Studio City with a dog named Geronimo. Even the heartbreaking song When I Was Your Man was written during a rough patch with her. But in late 2024, fans noticed her anniversary post vanished, and he was seen in Tokyo alone. A fan asked if they split, and she gave a short 15-word reply saying she would always celebrate his achievements. They never confirmed a breakup, but they were living separate lives. While that drama was unfolding, a bigger rumor started on March 15th, 2024. A news segment claimed Bruno Mars owed around $50 million to MGM Resorts because of gambling. They said he was working off the debt through his residency shows. Within hours, the internet exploded and the claim went viral. Shannon Sharpe even told his audience that Bruno once lost $17 million in a single night. MGM Resorts responded fast and said Bruno did not owe them anything, but people were already whispering that the story was planted to sell tickets. Bruno did not release a boring statement. Instead, he turned it into a joke during his show and asked where his friends were now that he was on the hook for $50 million. Is the $50 million debt a genius marketing trick or a true look into the dark side of a superstar life? Let us know your thoughts. Like and subscribe for more.